The Krillian war beasts had conquered 17 star systems without knowing the meaning of retreat. Their chitinous armor could deflect plasma fire, their claws could tear through reinforced steel, and their battle screams had sent entire battalions fleeing in terror. They were bred for one purpose: to crush any resistance beneath their massive, scaled feet. Commander Vexthor stood at the viewport of his flagship, mandibles clicking in satisfaction as he surveyed the human colony below. Earth's newest settlement on Proxima Station 7 would fall within the hour. The humans had proven surprisingly resilient across the galaxy, but their weakness was obvious. They brought their young to the battlefield, not as warriors but as children. The concept disgusted him. "Deploy the war beasts," he commanded. "Leave no structure standing." On the surface, Grace huddled in the corner of the agricultural dome, her arms wrapped protectively around her 5-year-old brother. The evacuation sirens had failed, the transport ships had already departed, and now the thundering footsteps of the Krillian war beasts shook the very ground beneath them. "Grace, I'm scared," the little boy whimpered, pressing his face against her shoulder. "I know, Tommy, I know." Grace was only 16, barely more than a child herself, but in this moment she was all her brother had. Their parents were off-world, and the colony's defense forces had been overwhelmed in minutes. The agricultural dome's transparent ceiling suddenly exploded inward. A Krillian war beast easily 4 meters tall crashed through the debris, its 6 eyes focused on the 2 humans, and a guttural growl rumbled from its throat. The creature had faced armed soldiers, mechanized walkers, and orbital bombardments. 2 unarmed children would be nothing. It took one thundering step forward, then it stopped. Something small and low to the ground had darted between the war beast and the children. Something that made a sound unlike anything the Krillian had ever heard, a chittering, aggressive snarl that seemed far too bold for such a tiny creature. Grace's eyes widened. "Is that a honey badger?" The animal was no more than 80 centimeters long, with distinctive black and white markings. It had escaped from the colony's Earth Wildlife Preservation Program when the attack began. Now it stood its ground, back arched, every hair bristling with aggression. The war beast tilted its massive head, confused. The small thing dared to challenge it. The creature that had torn through armored divisions was being threatened by something that barely reached its ankle. The honey badger attacked. What happened next would be analyzed by xenobiologists for decades. The small Earth creature launched itself at the war beast with such ferocity, such absolute fearlessness, that the Krillian actually stumbled backward. The honey badger's claws found gaps in the chitinous armor that plasma weapons had failed to penetrate. Its teeth sank into vulnerable joints. It climbed, bit, clawed, and refused to release even when the war beast thrashed and roared. Grace pulled Tommy back further, watching in stunned disbelief as the massive alien creature, the same species that had devastated colony after colony, fled from a single honey badger. The war beast crashed through the dome's wall in its panic, the small Earth animal still attached to its neck, still fighting with a fury that defied logic. What just happened?" Tommy whispered. Before Grace could answer, Logan burst through the emergency access door. The 19-year-old defense volunteer had his plasma rifle raised, his face covered in soot and blood. He'd been fighting a desperate rearguard action across the colony, buying time for evacuations that never came. "Grace, Tommy, thank God." Logan rushed to them, his eyes scanning for injuries. "We need to move. The Krillians are—" An explosion rocked the dome. Through the shattered walls they could see something impossible. The Krillian war beasts were retreating. Not in formation, not strategically, they were running, scrambling over each other in their haste to escape. Logan's combat radio crackled to life. All units, the enemy is withdrawing. Repeat, the Krillians are withdrawing from the planet." Grace pointed to where the honey badger had emerged from the wreckage, bloodied but unbowed, calmly grooming itself as if nothing had happened. I think they're running from that." Logan stared. "From a honey badger?" "It defended us," Grace said softly, watching the small creature. "The war beast came at us and it just attacked. No hesitation. No fear." High above, Commander Vexthor studied the tactical reports with growing horror. 3 of his war beasts were dead. 7 more were injured, traumatized, refusing to return to the surface. all from encounters with small Earth creatures that his xenobiology teams had identified as Mellivora capensis, honey badgers. His intelligence officer approached hesitantly. "Commander, I've accessed the human data networks. These creatures, they're known on Earth as the most fearless animals on the planet. They fight lions. They raid beehives despite being stung thousands of times. They've been documented fighting off entire packs of predators. They don't understand the concept of retreat." "But they're so small," Vexthor protested. "How can something so small? Size is irrelevant to them, sir. They simply don't care. And they bond with humans. Protect them." The intelligence officer's voice dropped to a whisper. "Commander, if the humans can domesticate creatures like this, if they bring such animals with them across the stars, what else are they capable of?" For the first time in his military career, Vexthor felt something he'd never experienced in battle. Fear. The humans didn't need superior weapons or larger armies. They had evolved alongside creatures that literally knew no fear, that would fight anything regardless of size or danger. "Retreat," he ordered quietly. "Full withdrawal. We're leaving this system." On the surface, Logan helped Grace and Tommy to their feet as colonial defense forces began emerging from their positions, confused but relieved. The honey badger had already wandered off, probably to raid the colony's food storage. "They're going to write about this," Logan said, watching the Krillian ships break orbit. "The day humanity's fiercest defender wasn't a soldier or a weapon, but a honey badger protecting 2 kids. Grace smiled, hugging Tommy close. "Maybe they'll finally understand. We don't conquer nature. We live with it. We survive with it. And sometimes when it matters most, nature fights for us." Across the galaxy, the story spread. The Krillians had learned what countless Earth predators had discovered before them. Size, strength, and ferocity meant nothing when facing a creature that simply refused to acknowledge defeat. The war beast knew no fear, until they met something even more fearless. And humanity, as always, had brought their companions with them to the stars.